Before you hit play, do me one favor, subscribe. Because what I'm about to tell you cost me my career, my clearance, and nearly my sanity. And if something happens to me before this gets out, I need to know it reached someone. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is October 2019, the Cascade Mountains, and the 5 of us who went in. We called it a NavX, navigation exercise, standard operator stuff. Night movement through unfamiliar terrain, dead reckoning, comms discipline. Command said it was of all week. They wanted to see how we performed under pressure, in the dark, in hostile geography. They lied. We inserted at 2,100 hours from a Black Hawk that dropped us on a ridgeline 8 miles northeast of Lake Wenatchee. The rotors beat the air into submission, downdraft flattening the ferns and huckleberry brush. Sergeant First Class Donnelly went first, then Corporal Zhao, Specialist Alvarez, Private First Class Kim, and me bringing rear security. The bird lifted. The sound pulled away like someone tearing fabric. Then the forest swallowed us. It was cold, 40 degrees, maybe less. Our breath plumed white under NOD's night optical devices painting the world in grainy green. The ridgeline dropped sharply to our north, thick with Douglas fir and western hemlock. Canopies so dense the starlight died 10 feet up. Donnelly checked his compass, tapped it twice, frowned. Bearings drifting, he muttered. Magnetic anomaly, Zhao offered. Basalt deposits mess with field nav. Donnelly didn't look convinced, but he pocketed the compass and pulled his GPS. The screen glowed faintly. He waited. The loading icon spun. Kept spinning. No signal, he said. Alvarez checked his. Same result. Kim tried the backup Dagger unit. Nothing. Mountains block satellites, I said, trying to sound certain. We're in a valley bowl. We'll get signal once we crest. Donnelly nodded slowly. Then we moved to high ground. Maintain interval. Weapons red. We descended. The slope was steep, littered with deadfall and moss-slick stones. Every step sounded too loud. Boot on bark, snap of twig, rustle of nylon. We moved in a staggered column, 5 meters between each man, scanning sectors, breathing through our noses. The forest was quiet, not peaceful, quiet. No owl calls, no mice skittering under leaves, no wind in the branches. Just our footsteps and the faint hum of blood in my ears. Kim keyed his radio. Overwatch, this is ground 1. Radio check. Over. Static. He tried again. Nothing. Comms are down, he whispered. Donnelly stopped. We halted behind him, forming a loose perimeter. He pulled his sat phone. The screen lit his face, pale green. He keyed the emergency channel. Waited. The screen flickered. Died. Battery? Alvarez asked. It was full. Donnelly's voice was flat. He looked at the trees around us, then at the sky or what little we could see of it. Something's jamming us. Intentional? Zhao asked. Or environmental? Donnelly shouldered his rifle. Either way, we continued to high ground and re-establish comms. Move. We kept going. 15 minutes later, we hit water. A creek, maybe 10 feet across, running fast and cold over smooth stones. The sound of it was almost a relief proof that the world still moved, still made noise. Donnelly knelt at the edge, dipped his glove in, brought it to his nose. Fresh, snowmelt. We followed it downstream. The terrain leveled out. The trees thinned slightly. Mist clung low to the ground, swirling around our boots like something alive. That's when Zhao stopped. Hold. We froze. He was staring at the creek bank. His rifle stayed low, but his shoulders were tight. He crouched. We moved up beside him. There, pressed deep into the soft mud, was a footprint. Not a boot, not a paw. A foot, barefoot, human-shaped, but wrong. 18 inches long, maybe more. 5 toes, each one thick as a thumb. The heel was massive, sunk 4 inches deep. The arch was pronounced. The stride, judging by the next print 6 feet ahead, was impossible. Bear, Kim whispered. Bears don't walk upright for 30 meters, Zhao said. Could be a hoax, Alvarez tried. Hunters screwing around. But his voice didn't believe it. Donnelly knelt. He pulled a chem light, cracked it, held it close. The green glow made the print look freshly bled. He touched the edge, still damp. He looked upstream. More prints. Dozens. Crisscrossing the creek, disappearing into the brush. Whatever made this, he said quietly. It was here recently. Then he stood. And he looked at the trees. We all did. The mist moved between the trunks. The silence pressed against my eardrums. Somewhere, far off, a branch cracked. Not fell. Cracked. Like something had snapped it on purpose. Donnelly's hand went to his rifle. Stay tight. We move faster. We did. But the feeling didn't leave. The feeling that the forest wasn't empty. That we weren't alone. That somewhere, just beyond the edge of the green glow of our NODs, something was watching. And it knew we were there. We moved faster, but the terrain fought us. Roots like tripwires, stones slick with algae. The mist thickened, clinging to our legs, dampening sound, until even our breathing felt muffled. Alvarez slipped. His knee cracked against a rock. He bit down on a curse, breath hissing through his teeth. You good? I whispered. He nodded, pushed himself up, but his hand was shaking. The tracks kept appearing. Not just along the creek, now pressed into soft earth between trees, scraped across fallen logs, even smeared in moss on a boulder. Always the same shape. Always too large. Then Zhao spotted the trees. Donnelly. 11 o'clock. We turned. 3 hemlocks in a row, each one marked. Long vertical gouges carved into the bark, 8 feet off the ground, deep, deliberate. The wood underneath was pale and fresh. Territory markers, Zhao said. For what? Kim's voice cracked. Donnelly didn't answer. He approached the nearest tree, ran his gloved fingers down the grooves. They were wider than claw marks, almost hand width. He looked up, following the gouges to where they ended. Something tall did this, he said. Something that wanted us to see it. A sound rolled through the forest. Low, resonant. Not quite a growl, not quite a call. It vibrated in my chest, made my lungs feel tight. It came from the north. Then, seconds later, another answered from the west. Then a third, south. We were surrounded. Box formation, Donnelly snapped. Weapons out, safeties off. We formed a tight square, backs nearly touching. Rifles raised. My heart hammered. The NODs turned the forest into a jittering maze of green shadows. I scanned my sector, finger resting outside the trigger guard, every muscle coiled. The calls stopped. Silence rushed back in, heavier than before. I don't see anything, Alvarez whispered. They're there, Zhao said. They're just not moving. Donnelly keyed his dead radio anyway. Overwatch, Ground 1. We are under observation by unknown hostiles, requesting immediate extract. Over. Static. Overwatch, Ground 1. Do you copy? Nothing. We need to move, I said. Now. Donnelly nodded. Leapfrog formation. Alvarez, Kim, your first bound. 50 meters. Go. They moved, fast and low. Zhao, Donnelly, and I stayed in position, covering arcs. My eyes burned from staring into the green void. Shadows shifted. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe my brain was just trying to find patterns in chaos. Alvarez and Kim took a knee. Signaled. We moved up. That's when I saw it. Just for a second. A shape between 2 trees. Tall. Massive. Upright. Not moving. Just standing. Watching. I stopped. Raised my rifle. Flicked on the IR laser. The beam cut through the mist. Landed on bark. Empty bark. Whatever I'd seen was gone. Contact? Donnelly hissed. Thought I know. Nothing. But I felt it. The weight of eyes. The prickling certainty that something had stepped aside the instant I looked. We kept moving. The creek widened. The mist thinned slightly. Ahead, through the trees, I saw open ground, a clearing. Maybe a logging road. Relief flooded through me. If we could reach it, we'd have visibility, room to maneuver, maybe even signal. That's when the tree fell. Not fell, was pushed. A Douglas fir, 60 feet tall, came crashing down 20 meters ahead. The impact shook the ground. Birds I hadn't realized were there, erupted from the canopy, screaming. We hit the dirt. What the hell? Kim started. Another tree groaned, snapped, fell parallel to the first, blocking our path. They're hurting us, Zhao said. Donnelly's jaw clenched. South. Move south. Fast. We ran. Not tactically. Not carefully. We ran. Branches whipped my face. Roots tried to trip me. My pack slammed against my spine with every stride. Behind us, I heard crashing. Heavy footfalls. More than one set. They weren't chasing us. They were pacing us, keeping us inside a corridor. We broke through a thicket and stumbled into another clearing. Smaller. A logging cut from years ago, now overgrown with saplings and fireweed. Donnelly stopped in the center, spinning, rifle up. There, Alvarez shouted. I turned. At the edge of the clearing, half hidden in shadow, it stood, 8 feet tall, maybe more. Broad shoulders, arms too long, legs thick as tree trunks, covered in dark hair, matted and coarse. Its face, God, its face was almost human. Flat nose, heavy brow, eyes that caught the faint starlight and threw it back amber. It didn't move, just stared. Alvarez raised his rifle. Don't, Donnelly hissed. It's right there. I said don't. The creature tilted its head, slowly, like it was curious, like it understood. Then another stepped out, to our left. Same height, same build. This one's eyes were lighter, gold. Then a third, behind us. Donnelly, I whispered. He didn't answer. His hand was white-knuckled on his rifle, his breathing fast and shallow. The first creature opened its mouth, and it called. Not a roar, not a scream. A sound that started deep, rolled up through its chest, and echoed across the clearing like a horn. The others responded. Harmony, communication. They're talking, Zhao said. Donnelly's radio crackled. We all flinched. Static. Then a voice, distorted, breaking up. Ground, abort, extract, LZ, Bravo. Overwatch, Donnelly keyed the radio. We copy. What's our... The radio died. The creature stepped closer. All three of them. Moving in sync, slow, deliberate. We were surrounded, outmatched. And whatever they were, they knew it. Donnelly made the call. IR strobe. On my mark. Then, we run for that road. Do not stop. Do not look back. Mark now. He triggered the strobe on his helmet. Infrared light flooded the clearing, invisible to human eyes, blinding through NODs. We ran. And behind us, the forest exploded with sound. We ran like prey. No formation. No tactics. Just adrenaline and terror. Behind us, branches snapped like gunfire. The ground shook with impacts heavy, rhythmic, closing fast. I heard breathing, massive lungs pulling air. I heard something else too, a low, guttural sound, almost like speech. Coordination. Kim stumbled. Zhao grabbed his pack, hauled him forward. Don't stop, Donnelly screamed. My lungs burned. My legs felt like lead. The forest blurred into smears of green shadow. I couldn't tell if we were still heading south or if we'd veered off. Didn't matter. We just had to get out. Ahead, the trees thinned. Starlight broke through. I saw gravel, a road, logging road. There, Alvarez shouted. We burst out of the tree line and onto the road. Open sky above. No canopy, no mist. Just cold air and stars and blessed, open ground. We didn't stop. We kept running. Down the center of the road, boots hammering gravel. I risked a glance back. They stood at the forest edge. All three of them. Maybe more, I couldn't tell. Shadows within shadows. They didn't pursue. They just watched. Eyes glowing faintly. Steam rising from their breath. One of them raised its arm. Slowly. Deliberately. Almost like a wave. Then they turned and melted back into the trees. They stopped. Kim gasped. Why'd they stop? They didn't want the open ground, Zhao said. Or they didn't need to follow. Donnelly pulled his sat phone. The screen flickered. Came to life. He nearly sobbed. He keyed the emergency beacon. Overwatch. Ground 1. We are at LZ Bravo. Request immediate extract. We are alive. Repeat. All 5 alive. Get us out. Now. Static. Then. Copy. Ground 1. Bird inbound. ETA 12 minutes. Pop green smoke. Alvarez pulled a canister from his pack. Cracked it. Green smoke billowed into the night, glowing under the stars. We formed a perimeter. Rifles out, eyes on the trees. Nobody spoke. We just stood there, shaking, breathing too fast, waiting for the sound of rotors. It felt like hours. It was 12 minutes. The Black Hawk came in low and fast, floodlight sweeping the road. It touched down just long enough for us to scramble aboard. The crew chief grabbed Donnelly's harness, hauled him in. We piled into the troop bay, collapsed onto the bench seats. The bird lifted. Through the open door, I saw the forest shrink below us. Dark, endless, quiet. Somewhere down there, they were still watching. We landed at Joint Base Lewis McChord at 0340 hours. No debrief in the hangar. No medics. Just 2 men in civilian clothes in a black Suburban. They didn't introduce themselves. They told us to leave our weapons, our gear, our phones. We were driven in silence to a windowless building on the far side of the base. Inside, a conference room, metal table, fluorescent lights, coffee in styrofoam cups that nobody touched. The older man sat across from us. He didn't smile. He didn't threaten. He just spoke. What you experienced tonight is classified under the URSUS protocol. You will not discuss it with anyone outside this room. Not your families. Not your chain of command. Not each other. You will sign non-disclosure agreements with enforcement clauses. Violation will result in immediate prosecution under Title 18, Section 793. Do you understand? We stared. I said, do you understand? What were they? Donnelly asked. That is not your concern. We were bait. Zhao's voice was cold. You sent us in there as bait. The man didn't deny it. You were part of an observational exercise. All 5 of you are alive. That is the relevant outcome. Observational. Alvarez started to stand. The younger man's hand moved to his belt. Alvarez sat. Sign the documents, the older man said. Go home. Resume your duties. Forget tonight. We signed. What choice did we have? They scattered us. Donnelly was reassigned to Germany within a month. Zhao to Korea. Alvarez took an early discharge. Kim went to Fort Bragg. I stayed at Lewis, but my clearance was flagged. I couldn't access certain systems, certain files. Certain conversations ended when I entered the room. I tried to forget. I couldn't. I started digging. Carefully. Off-network, public records, FOIA requests. I found incident reports. Redacted. I found requisition orders for specialized veterinary equipment, tranquilizer compounds, large-scale containment transport. I found a budget line buried in a DoD black project. Live specimen acquisition and behavioral study. I found names, researchers, contractors, facilities, and I found gaps, missing crews, training accidents with no bodies recovered, helicopter crashes with no wreckage, all in the same region, all within a 100-mile radius of where we were dropped. URS, protocol wasn't new. It had been running for years, maybe decades. We weren't the first. We were just the first to survive and stay silent. 2 years later, Kim called me, middle of the night. He was drunk. He said he couldn't sleep anymore. Said he kept seeing those eyes. Said he'd tried to report it, tried to talk to a chaplain, and 2 days later he was pulled into an office and reminded of his NDA. They're still out there, he said, and we left them. There was nothing we could do. There's always something. He hung up. I tried calling back. Number disconnected. I don't know where Kim is now. I don't know if he's okay. I know I'm not. So here's what I'm doing. I'm building a dead man's switch. Files, evidence, testimony. If something happens to me, it goes public. Everywhere. Simultaneously. And I'm telling you now. Because silence is complicity. Those things in the Cascades, they're intelligent. They're coordinated. They showed restraint. They could have killed us. They didn't. But we're still hunting them, studying them, capturing them. And the question isn't whether they're real. The question is what we're going to do about it. Control them? Weaponize them? Or leave them alone? I know my answer. I'm breaking my silence. Now, it's your turn. Let me tell you what happened after I started asking questions. 3 months after that night, I tried accessing mission logs through the standard database. My credentials were rejected. I called the S2 shop. They said my access had been administratively suspended pending review. No review ever came. I filed a request through my chain of command to speak with Donnelly. I was told he was deployed and unavailable. When I checked the deployment roster, his name wasn't on it. I tried Zhao. Same response. Alvarez had disconnected his number entirely. They'd isolated us. Deliberately. So I went analog. I drove to the National Archives in Seattle. I requested declassified reports on wildlife studies in the Cascade Range. Took 3 weeks to get anything, and what I got was a joke, 20 pages. Half of them redacted, talking about elk migration and wolf reintroduction. But one file had a handwritten note in the margin. Just 2 words. URSSC attachments. There were no attachments. I filed a FOIA request. It was denied. I appealed. Denied again. Reason. National security exemption. That's when I knew I was onto something. I started looking at contractors. Private military companies with DoD ties. BioTrack Solutions. Apex Guard. Northline Strategic. All of them had contracts for wildlife asset management and specimen transport logistics in the Pacific Northwest. Vague language. Big budgets. I found a procurement order from 2017, $4.3 million for large-scale containment modules, climate-controlled, secure transport. The purchase was routed through an Army research facility in Oregon. I called the facility, asked to speak with someone in logistics, got transferred 4 times. Finally, a woman picked up. I asked about the containment modules. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Who gave you this number?" I hung up. I wasn't the only one digging. A journalist named Marissa Cohn had been investigating disappearances near national forests. Hunters, hikers, forestry workers who vanished without a trace. No bodies, no evidence. Just gone. She'd filed requests for search and rescue records. She'd found inconsistencies. Helicopters deployed to remote areas with no public explanation. Recovery teams sent in, then immediately debriefed and reassigned. She called me in June of 2021. "I don't know how she got my number. You were at Lewis McChord in 2019. She said, "You and 4 others went into the Cascades on a training op. You came back, and 2 weeks later, your unit was restructured. That's not normal." I didn't confirm anything. I didn't have to. "I'm writing a piece," she said, "about what the government knows and isn't telling us. About people who've seen things. If you want to talk off the record, I'll protect your identity." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I thought about that room. The man in the suit. The NDA. Title 18. "I can't," I said. "Can't." or won't. I hung up. 3 days later, Marissa Cohn died in a car accident. Single vehicle collision on Highway 2, just outside of Leavenworth. Her car went off the road, hit a tree. She wasn't speeding. No alcohol in her system. No witnesses. Her notes were never recovered. That's when I got scared. Not for me. I'd already accepted that risk. But for the people I loved, my sister, my parents, the friends who had nothing to do with this. So I stopped. For a while, I kept my head down. I did my job. I deployed to Jordan for 6 months, then to Poland. I tried to bury it. I told myself it didn't matter, that I couldn't change anything, that some secrets are too big to fight. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, standing at the tree line, watching, waiting, intelligent, restrained, and captive. In 2023, I found the facility. I didn't break in. I didn't trespass. I just drove past it. Twice. An old Army research station outside of Tacoma, supposedly decommissioned in 2015. But the fence was new, 12 feet, topped with razor wire, security cameras every 50 meters, guard shack with 2 men in contractor uniforms, no signs, no markers, just a gravel road that turned off the highway and disappeared into the trees. I parked a mile away and hiked to a ridgeline overlooking the site. I brought binoculars. I watched. For 3 hours, nothing. Then a truck arrived, unmarked, refrigerated transport, the kind used for livestock or medical cargo. It backed up to a loading bay. 4 people in hazmat suits got out. They unloaded something. I couldn't see what, but I heard it. A low, resonant call, muffled, distressed. The same sound I'd heard in the forest. I left. I went home. I threw up. Then I made the decision. I wasn't going to fight them in court. I wasn't going to blow the whistle through official channels. I wasn't going to trust journalists or lawyers or anyone inside the system. I was going to build a dead man's switch. I copied every file I'd gathered, every document, every procurement order, every redacted report. I recorded my testimony. I encrypted it all and distributed it across multiple servers, multiple jurisdictions. If anything happens to me, it releases automatically. Everywhere. WikiLeaks, ProPublica, every major newsroom, every congressional inbox. I wrote letters to Donnelly, Zhao, Alvarez. I don't know if they'll ever read them, but I told them what I found. I told them they weren't crazy. I told them I was going to speak. And now I'm speaking. To you. Because you need to know. Not just that they exist, but what we're doing to them. These beings, they're not animals. They're not monsters. They're something else. Something that was here long before we were. Something that learned to avoid us, to hide from us, to survive us. And we repaid them with cages. I don't know how much longer I have. I don't know if this video will stay up. I don't know if you'll believe me. But I know one thing. Silence is consent. And I'm done being silent. If you're watching this, share it. Archive it. Spread it. Because the only thing they fear more than exposure is all of us knowing at once. The truth isn't a weapon. It's a witness. And now you are too. Let me tell you about the dreams. They started 6 months after the Cascades. Always the same. I'm back in the forest, alone. No rifle, no NODs, no team. Just me, and the mist, and the silence. I walk. I don't know where I'm going. I just walk. And then I see them. Not attacking. Not chasing. Just standing in a circle around me. 8 of them. Maybe more. Their eyes glowing faint gold in the dark. Their breath rising in clouds. They don't move. They just watch. And I feel it. This weight. This pressure in my chest. Not fear. Something else. Sadness. Grief. Like they're asking me a question I don't know how to answer. Then I wake up. Sweating. Heart pounding. And I know it wasn't just a dream. It was a message. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a cryptozoologist. I'm a soldier who saw something he wasn't supposed to see and can't forget it. But I've done enough research to understand what we're dealing with. Gigantopithecus, Paranthropus, Homo heidelbergensis. The fossil record is full of hominids that went extinct, or that we think went extinct. But what if one branch didn't? What if they adapted, stayed hidden, learned that survival meant invisibility? The indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest have known for centuries. Sasquatch, Tessemaquest, Skookum. Every tribe has a name for them. Every oral tradition includes warnings. Respect their territory. Don't hunt them. Don't follow them. Don't provoke them. We ignored all of it. We sent in researchers with camera traps and DNA swabs. We sent in hunters with tranquilizer guns. We sent in soldiers. We treated them like a resource. And now we're keeping them in cages. Here's what I think is happening. Ursus protocol isn't a study. It's an acquisition program. They've been capturing them, slowly, carefully, probably for decades, using soldiers as bait, drawing them out, observing their behavior, learning their patterns. Then, when they have enough data, they send in the real teams, specialists, contractors. They drug them, transport them, lock them in facilities, and they experiment. I don't know what kind of experiments. I don't want to know. But I can guess. Genetic analysis, cognitive testing, behavioral conditioning. Maybe they're trying to communicate. Maybe they're trying to weaponize them. Maybe they just want to prove they can control something that's been beyond human control for millennia. Whatever it is, it's wrong. I know what you're thinking. If they're real, why hasn't anyone else come forward? Because anyone who tries disappears. Marissa Cohn, killed in a car accident. Dr. Raymond Ulrich, a primatologist who wrote a paper proposing the existence of a relict hominid population in North America, retracted his work 6 months later. When asked why, he said, "I was mistaken." His eyes said something else. Forestry worker named Dale Pruitt claimed he saw a family of them near Mount Rainier, reported it to his supervisor, fired 2 weeks later for insubordination. His file was sealed. And soldiers like me, who signed NDAs under threat of prosecution, who've been reassigned, isolated, watched. We're not allowed to talk, because if we do, the whole lie collapses. So why am I talking now? Because I can't carry this anymore. Because every time I see those procurement orders, those containment modules, those redacted files, I think about that moment in the clearing, when they stood there, when they chose not to kill us. They had every advantage. Strength, numbers, terrain. We were 5 men with rifles, and they were apex predators who knew that forest like we know our own skin. But they let us go. They showed restraint, intelligence, mercy, and we responded with tranquilizer darts and cages. That's not science. That's cruelty. I'm not naive. I know this video won't change everything. I know the government will deny it, debunk it, call me a liar, a conspiracy theorist, a disgraced soldier with an axe to grind. Maybe you won't believe me. Maybe you'll think I'm making it up for views, for attention, for money. I don't care, because somewhere in a facility outside Tacoma, there's a living, breathing, intelligent being locked in a cell. And it's not alone. There are others, in other facilities, other black sites, and they're waiting for us to decide what kind of species we want to be. Do we respect the unknown, or do we conquer it? Do we coexist, or do we control? I don't have all the answers. I don't have smoking gun proof. I don't have photographs or recordings or bodies. What I have is testimony. What I have is 5 men who went into a forest and came out changed. What I have is a pattern of disappearances, cover-ups, and lies that stretches back decades. And what I have is this, a certainty, deep in my bones, that we are not alone on this continent, that we share it with something older, wiser, and more human than we want to admit. They're not monsters. We are. Here's what I need you to do. If you're watching this, share it. Don't let it get buried. Don't let it get scrubbed. Download it. Repost it. Send it to your friends, your family, your representatives. If you live near the Cascades, or the Rockies, or the Appalachians, if you've seen something you can't explain, speak up. You're not crazy. You're not alone. And if you work for the government, for a contractor, for anyone involved in URSA's protocol, leak it. Anonymously, safely, but leak it, because history will judge you, not by your obedience, but by your courage. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if I'll face prosecution, harassment, or worse. But I know this. I can finally sleep, because I'm no longer complicit. I've chosen my side, and now you have to choose yours. Don't forget to subscribe, not for me, but because this story doesn't end here. It ends with you, and what you decide to do next. There's one more thing I need to tell you, something I've kept back, something that makes this worse. A week before I recorded this video, I got a message, not a call, not an email, a package, left on my doorstep, no return address, no postmark, just a padded envelope with my name on it. Inside was a thumb drive and a note. The note said, "You're not the only one who remembers. Stay quiet or we'll remind you why." I almost threw it away, almost burned it, but I didn't. I plugged it into an air-gapped laptop. I opened the files, and I saw them. Photos, dozens of them, time-stamped, geotagged. Cascade Mountains, October 2019, the same night. But these weren't taken by us. They were taken of us. There were shots from above, from drones or helicopters. Thermal imaging showing our heat signatures moving through the forest. Infrared stills of the creatures clear, detailed, undeniable. One image showed all three of them standing at the clearing's edge, watching us run. Another showed one of them holding a branch, tilted like a tool. Another showed a juvenile, half hidden behind an adult, small hands gripping matted fur. A family. We'd walked into their territory, and they defended it, not with violence, with warning. But the worst photo was the last one. It was inside a containment cell, concrete walls, steel bars. A massive figure slumped against the wall, arms chained, head down. Its fur was matted. Its skin showed abrasions, injection sites. Its eyes, those amber eyes, were open, empty, defeated. The timestamp read, November 2019. 1 month after our mission. They'd gone back. They'd captured one. I don't know why they sent me that thumb drive. Maybe it was a warning. Maybe it was a taunt. Maybe someone inside the program has a conscience and wanted me to see what I'd help them do. Because I did help them. By staying quiet. By signing that NDA. By convincing myself it wasn't my responsibility. I was wrong. Let me make one thing clear. I'm not asking you to storm a government facility. I'm not asking you to break laws. I'm not asking you to put yourself in danger. I'm asking you to care, to see this for what it is. A test. Not of them. Of us. Because if we can justify locking up intelligent beings in the name of national security, or science, or curiosity, what can't we justify? Where does it end? There's a quote I keep thinking about. It's from a biologist named E.O. Wilson. He said, "The real problem of humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. We've spent 10,000 years trying to conquer nature, tame it, control it, turn it into something we can own. And we've succeeded. We've built cities, split atoms, mapped genomes. We've become the dominant species on Earth. But dominance isn't wisdom, and control isn't coexistence. Here's the truth they don't want you to know. We need them more than they need us. Not physically, not economically, but morally. Because as long as there's something on this planet that we haven't conquered, haven't caged, haven't bent to our will, there's hope. Hope that wildness still exists, that mystery still exists, that there are boundaries we can choose not to cross. But if we cross this one, if we reduce these beings to test subjects, to specimens, to assets, we lose something we can't get back. We lose our humanity. I know some of you still don't believe me. You think this is fiction, a creepypasta, a well-produced hoax. Fine, I can't force you to believe, but I can ask you to consider this. What if I'm telling the truth? What if, right now, there are living, breathing, intelligent beings, locked in cells, separated from their families, subjected to experiments, because we decided they don't have rights? What if your skepticism is exactly what they're counting on? I've done everything I can. I've gathered evidence. I've built my dead man switch. I've spoken. The rest is up to you. If you're in the military and you've seen something, document it. Securely, anonymously. There are ways. If you're a scientist and you've been approached to work on classified wildlife research, ask questions. Demand transparency. If you're a civilian and you care about this, talk about it. Make noise. File FOIA requests. Contact your representatives. Fund independent researchers. Support indigenous land rights, because they've been protecting these beings longer than we've known they exist. And if you're someone inside URS's protocol, someone who knows what's happening and feels the weight of it leak, please, the world needs to know. I don't know how this ends. I don't know if we'll choose coexistence or conquest. I don't know if these beings will survive the next decade, or if they'll vanish like so many species before them. But I know this. The moment we stop seeing them as beings and start seeing them as things we've already lost. One last thing. If something happens to me, if I disappear, if I'm discredited or silenced, don't let that stop you. Don't let them bury this, because the truth is bigger than me. It's bigger than any of us, and it's waiting for you to decide what to do with it. So here's my final question. Not to the government, not to the scientists, to you. When you close your eyes tonight, and you think about those beings standing at the edge of the forest, watching us with intelligence and restraint, what do you see? Monsters or mirrors? My name doesn't matter. My rank doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm one of 5 soldiers who went into the Cascade Mountains in October 2019 and saw something the world refuses to believe. But I'm done hiding it. I'm done being afraid. I'm done being silent. And now, so are you. Subscribe, share, speak, because the only thing more dangerous than the truth is letting it die in the dark. Before you close this tab, I need you to understand something. This isn't over. Not for me, not for them, and not for you. Because the moment you heard this story, you became part of it. You became a witness. And witnesses have a choice. Stay silent or speak. I chose to speak. Now you have to choose. Let me tell you what silence costs. It costs you sleep. It costs you peace. It costs you the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and believe you're a good person. I know. I tried it for years. I told myself it wasn't my responsibility, that I was just following orders, that I didn't have the power to change anything, that my silence kept me safe, kept my family safe. But it didn't. It just made me complicit. And every day, I stayed quiet. The weight got heavier, until I couldn't carry it anymore. Here's what I think about late at night. I think about that juvenile, the one in the photo, holding onto the adult's fur, small hands, frightened eyes. I think about what happened to that family after we left. Did they run? Did they hide deeper in the mountains? Or did the teams come back with tranquilizers and nets and helicopters? I think about that cell. That figure slumped against the wall, defeated. Did it fight? Did it scream? Did it understand what was happening? Or did it just feel the betrayal, the shattering realization that the creatures it had spared came back with chains? I think about that. And I can't sleep. Some of you are going to say, I'm naive. That these beings, if they exist, are dangerous. That studying them, containing them, is necessary. that national security justifies secrecy. Let me ask you something. If they're so dangerous, why did they let us live? They had us surrounded, boxed in, outnumbered, and outmatched. We were exhausted, disoriented, armed with weapons that would have barely slowed them down. They could have killed us in seconds. They didn't. They watched. They warned. They herded us out. And when we ran, they stopped at the forest edge and let us go. That's not aggression. That's restraint. That's intelligence. That's mercy. And we responded with betrayal. I want to show you something. I'm going to describe one of the photos from that thumb drive in detail. I can't share the image, I don't have a death wish, but I can tell you what it shows. It's thermal imaging, taken from above, probably a drone. The timestamp reads 2,247 hours. That's 10:47 p.m., about 30 minutes after we extracted. The location is the same clearing where we encountered them. In the image, you see 3 large heat signatures. Adults. They're standing in a triangle formation. Between them, smaller signatures. 2 juveniles. Maybe 3. And they're not moving. They're just standing there, together. A family, waiting to see if we'd come back. They didn't attack us. They didn't chase us beyond the road. They just wanted us gone, out of their territory. And less than a month later, one of them was in a cell. I've read the arguments. I've seen the justifications. They're not human, so they don't have rights. We need to study them to understand them. They could be a threat. We need to assess and contain. Let me tell you what those arguments really mean. They mean we're afraid, and when we're afraid, we cage things. They mean we don't understand them, so they belong to us. They mean might makes right, and that logic has been used to justify every atrocity in human history: slavery, genocide, experimentation, conquest. We always find a reason. We always tell ourselves it's necessary. We always say, this time is different. It's not. Here's the hardest part. I can't prove this to you, not in a way that will satisfy a court, or a journalist, or a scientist. The evidence I have is circumstantial. The testimony is secondhand. The photos are on a thumb drive I can't verify. If I release them, they'll call them doctored, AI-generated, hoaxes. If I go public, they'll call me mentally unstable, attention-seeking, dishonorably discharged. They'll bury me. And they'll bury this, unless enough people hear it, unless enough people care. That's why I'm telling you, because the truth doesn't survive in isolation. It survives in numbers. I know some of you are thinking, what can I do? I'm just one person. I don't have power. I don't have access. I don't have proof. You're wrong. You have a voice. And voices add up. Every share is a crack in the wall. Every conversation is a seed. Every person who refuses to look away is a threat to the system that relies on silence. You're not powerless. You're just convinced you are. Let me tell you what I want. I want congressional hearings. I want independent investigations. I want journalists who aren't afraid to dig. I want scientists who will demand transparency. I want the facilities opened, the files declassified, the beings released. I want accountability for the soldiers who were used as bait, for the researchers who turned discovery into captivity, for the officials who signed off on this. And I want a future where we choose coexistence over conquest, where we protect the unknown instead of exploiting it, where we prove that intelligence means restraint, not just for them, but for us. But here's the reality. That future doesn't happen unless you make it happen. I've done my part. I've spoken. I've risked everything to get this story out. Now it's your turn. So I'll ask you one more time. When you think about those beings standing in the mist, eyes glowing amber, watching us with something that looked like understanding, what do you feel? Fear? Curiosity? Responsibility? Because whatever you feel, that's your answer. That's your choice. And your choice matters. Don't let them bury this. Don't let them tell you it's fake, or exaggerated, or irrelevant. Don't let them win by making you not care, because the moment you stop caring, they've already won. Subscribe, not because I need the views, but because this channel is the archive. This is where the story lives. And if enough of you are watching, they can't make it disappear. Share this video, not because it's entertaining, but because it's true. And truth, once spoken, can't be unspoken. My name is Sergeant First Class Redacted. I served in the United States Army for 12 years. I was deployed 4 times. I received 2 commendations and 1 reprimand. I am not a liar. I am not insane. I am not looking for fame. I am a soldier who saw something he wasn't supposed to see, and I'm done pretending I didn't. The forest is still out there. The beings are still out there. The facilities are still operating. The lies are still being told. But now, you know, and knowing is the first step. The second step is yours. Good night, and good luck. We're all gonna need it. There's something I haven't told you yet. Something I've been avoiding because once I say it, there's no taking it back. I think they knew. I think they knew we were coming. Let me explain. When we were dropped on that ridgeline, Donnelly said it was a navigation exercise. Eval week. Standard training. But here's the thing. Eval week doesn't happen in October. It happens in spring or late summer, when weather's predictable and terrain's accessible. And we weren't a trainee unit. We were experienced operators. Donnelly had 15 years in. Zhao was Ranger qualified. Alvarez had 2 deployments. Kim had gone through Siri school. I'd been in country 3 times. You don't evaluate people like us with a land nav course. You use them for something else. I've gone over the mission brief 100 times in my head. The insertion coordinates, the lack of GPS, the comms blackout, the fact that we were told to move at night through unfamiliar terrain with no backup plan. That's not training. That's bait. They wanted us in that forest. They wanted us moving through that territory. They wanted to see how the beings would react. And I think the beings knew. Here's why. They didn't ambush us. They didn't attack. They tracked us, watched us, herded us. They controlled the encounter from start to finish. They pushed trees down to block our path. They used calls to coordinate. They surrounded us in that clearing not to kill us, but to observe us. It was a test, but not for us. For them. We were the stimulus. They were the subject. And whoever was running URSUS protocol was watching the whole thing unfold. That's the part that keeps me awake. The part that makes me sick. We weren't just soldiers following orders. We were lab rats. Expendable variables in an experiment we didn't consent to. And when it was over, when we'd served our purpose, they locked us down with NDAs and scattered us to the wind so we couldn't compare notes or ask questions. That's not how you treat soldiers. That's how you dispose of witnesses. I've tried to find out who authorized the mission, who planned it, who gave the order to send 5 men into those mountains knowing what was out there. Every search hits a dead end. Every name is redacted. Every file is classified or lost. But someone signed off. Someone watched the drone feed. Someone decided our lives were worth the risk. And I want to know who. Let me tell you what I think URSUS protocol really is. I think it started as research. Decades ago, some scientist or anthropologist found evidence tracks, hair samples, sightings, and pitched it to the Department of Defense, not as a conservation project, as a strategic asset. What if we could study them, control them, understand their strength, their intelligence, their adaptation? And the DoD said yes, because that's what they do. They weaponize everything. So they started small. Observation, remote monitoring, camera traps, and DNA collection. But observation wasn't enough. They needed live specimens. They needed interaction data. They needed to know, can they be trained? Can they be contained? Can they be used? And that's when they started sending in soldiers. Not to fight, to provoke, to draw them out, to create controlled encounters. We were never in danger of being killed, Because they didn't want us dead. They wanted us scared. They wanted reactions. They wanted footage. And they got it. Here's the question I can't answer. How many others? How many soldiers have been sent into those mountains under false pretenses? How many have come back silent, confused, reassigned? How many didn't come back at all? I found one name. Just one. Lieutenant Grace Howell, Army Reserve. She disappeared during a training exercise in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest in 2016. The official report said she fell into a ravine and her body was never recovered. But there was no search, no extended recovery operation. Just a brief sweep, a memorial service, and a closed case. I found her father online. I called him. I didn't tell him who I was. I just asked about Grace. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "They told me she fell. But her gear was never found. Her weapon was never found. And the area they said she fell into, it's flat." "Did you push for answers?" I asked. "I tried. They told me it was classified. They told me to stop asking questions." He paused. "Do you know something?" I couldn't answer. I just said I was sorry. He said, "If you know something, please tell me. I just want to know what happened to my daughter." I hung up. I couldn't breathe. Grace Howell is one name, one file, one family that deserves answers. How many more are there? Here's the worst part. The part I can barely say out loud. I think some of them are still alive. Not the soldiers, the beings. I think they're being kept in facilities, studied, tested, bred, maybe. I think Ursa's protocol isn't just about observation anymore. I think it's about control, about creating a captive population, about turning them into tools. And I think the reason the government will never admit they exist is because admitting it means admitting what they've done to them. You can't acknowledge the existence of an intelligent species and then justify keeping them in cages. You can't call them persons and then treat them like property. So they stay silent, and the beings stay hidden, and the lie continues. But lies don't last forever. Someone always talks. Someone always leaks. Someone always decides that their conscience is louder than their fear. I'm that someone, and I'm not alone. There are others. Soldiers, scientists, contractors who've seen too much and carried it too long. We're building a network. Quietly, carefully, sharing information, verifying sources, preparing for the day when we can go public together, with enough evidence that they can't discredit us all. That day is coming, and when it does, the world will have to choose. Do we acknowledge them, protect them, and atone for what we've done? Or do we double down on the lie and lose the last shred of our humanity? I know what I'm asking you to believe sounds impossible. It sounds like science fiction, like paranoia, like conspiracy. But I need you to sit with this thought. What if the reason it sounds impossible is because you've been conditioned to think that way? What if the reason you doubt me is because doubt is the first line of defense for people who don't want you to ask questions? I can't make you believe me. I can only tell you what I saw, what I lived, what I know. And I can tell you this. The beings in the Cascade Mountains are real. They're intelligent. They're capable of restraint, communication, and compassion. And they're being held captive by the same government that sent me into their territory as bait. If you take nothing else from this, take this. The unknown is not your enemy. Fear is. And the people who profit from your fear will do everything they can to keep you afraid of the truth, of the consequences, of what it means to care. Don't let them.